You're listening to Got Your Six Leadership Forged in Fire. I'm Dr. Traci, a retired U.S. Army officer turned business strategist. This is where I bring real talk, real leadership lessons, and battle tested tools that shaped me as a leader and continue to shape the leaders I coach today. Each episode gives you clarity, courage, and the confidence to lead with intention. Whether the battles you face are in business, at home, or within yourself, let's lock in, get honest, and lead like it matters.
Hey, y'all, here we are. Welcome back to Got Your Six. Thank you, all my listeners, for coming back and listening again. As you know, I am your host, Dr. Traci. Today is a little bit different. We're going to be talking about a father's journey through leadership. When we hear the word leadership, most people immediately think about business, military service, management positions, and executive roles. But some of the most important leadership lessons we will ever learn happen far, far away from the boardroom. They happen at the dinner table, at football games, from our coaches and things like that, in school parking lots, during difficult conversations. And in these moments, when a child looks to us for guidance, even when we aren't sure we have all the answers ourselves, we have to know how to stand up and be the leader for that person looking up to us. Equally, when you all were young, you did the same thing with these people in your lives. As we celebrate Father's Day, I wanted to bring in four of my very favorite people from very different walks of life and different seasons in their fatherhood. Some are raising young children, some are preparing for adulthood, some have balanced military service, entrepreneurship, demanding careers, and family responsibilities, but all of them have something in common. They have all chosen to show up. Today, we are talking to about fatherhood, responsibility, leadership, mistakes, lessons learned, and what happens when the people looking to you for guidance call you dad. So let's jump in. I'm going to do a quick introduction. We have Paul Kohn on this call, one of my favorite people. He's an entrepreneur, a dedicated father, and someone who literally moved across the country to remain active and involved in his children's lives while balancing entrepreneurship and shared custody. Hopefully, that doesn't sound bad to say that. He does do a great juggling act with it. I love seeing all the pictures. Paul has remained deeply committed to being present and engaged in every stage of his children's growth. We have Lacey. He's our neighbor and such a close friend of ours. He is an engineer. Hopefully, I'm right about that. Working in a high stress IT environment while balancing fatherhood, shared custody. Again, that just sounds so terrible. We might need to think of a different way to say that, because he does also do a great juggling act with making sure he can be involved in every day of his children's lives. He has one child preparing for college while another still in high school. Lacey brings unique perspectives on balancing demanding professional responsibilities while remaining consistently present as a father. Okay, Brian Kato. He is a business owner of like 5,000 businesses, entrepreneur, father of two energetic young children. Brian is currently navigating one of the busiest seasons of fatherhood. I needed to say this because, oh my God, I would not. We have a granddaughter, it's enough for me. And that's part time, right? But he's balancing the simultaneously building businesses, restructuring, making him uniquely positioned to discuss what leadership presence and priorities look like in real time with young humans. And then Michael, my husband, he is a veteran entrepreneur, former jewelry store owner, and perhaps one of the greatest examples I've personally, look, I'm about to cry, personally witnessed of choosing fatherhood before anything, choosing family first. He was a stay-at-home dad. I don't know many men that will step away from their professional lives to do that while their children are young. Michael made a decision from stepping away from traditional career paths and becoming that stay-at-home dad while raising our children, while I was fighting wars, literally, and running the streets, doing all the things and living all over the place. Along that journey, he navigated the challenges that many veterans experience when transitioning from the military into completely different seasons of their lives. So here we are, gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. Does anybody else have anything they want to add before we get started? Because we know I love my thought-provoking questions. Anything anybody else
Yeah,
wants to add?
I'll chime in on something.
Okay, go for
You
it.
you had mentioned that, which is true. I did choose to be a father over other things, but you remember this. I was offered a job in New York. Well, it wasn't a job. It was to co-found a new wholesale loose gemstone company in New York City. And the guy that was founding it in the early 2000s was already doing over 50 million a year doing the same thing. And so there's no doubt in my mind that business in year one would have done at least $1 million in sales.
Yeah.
But and then you're talking about my cut of that would have been probably 25%. And it's crazy because you get a job offer like that where you're literally being mentored at the same time. And who can really say no to that? But I remember I was so excited and I was going to go. And I said to Ashley and Ty, hey, I'm going to do this. Right. And both of them started crying. And I was like, oh, I can't do this. Because again, you were in the service and
Yeah, and
it was just
you were the stable element in their lives, and
right.
there were several times, it wasn't the only time, but I appreciate you being vulnerable and bringing that up because
Yeah.
there were several times in your life where moments were presented that way, and you made that solid choice to be that stable element for them. Boy, that makes me sound terrible. I was such a horrible mom sometimes, and I wasn't able to
No.
always be there for them, but it was a choice that Michael and I made very early in our children's lives that we weren't gonna move them everywhere. We stayed, it's called homesteading. We stayed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to give them the stability to be in one place all of the time, but it made it where I moved a lot. But Michael's right. I mean, he did make those hard choices. He dealt with a lot of bully moms out there. So all of y'all bully moms, if you recognize him, shame on you. But
Yeah.
let's dive into this for everybody. Thank you, Michael, for being vulnerable. So that lets me know how
Yeah.
much I'm gonna dig into this with you.
All
So let's dig into this a little bit though. When
right. Mhm.
fatherhood stopped feeling, this is for everybody. When did fatherhood stop feeling like an idea and
Mhm.
start feeling like, and this is for all of you, and Brian, this is going to be a little unique because your kids are young, but I think this also does apply to you. When did it stop feeling like an idea, but more like a responsibility? Was there a moment for any of you where you're like, this little human is watching literally everything I'm doing? Do any of you remember that moment?
Yeah, when she said, "I'm pregnant."
Okay, I'm hoping that means your wife, your ex-wife, not your
And it's
daughter.
like, okay, it's
Yeah,
time to reel this stuff in. No,
yeah,
seriously, that's when you got
yeah,
I mean, that's when it hit me. It's
I
like,
love
okay,
that.
I was uh, to expand on what I did. Yes, I'm
Yep,
definitely an entrepreneur now, but I've been an entrepreneur for a while, but I was also an airline captain for almost 30 years, right?
yeah,
So
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on the road trying to balance, and I didn't get married till I was 40. I didn't have my first kids start until I was later in life. So I don't want to call it selfish, but I was having a damn good time. I was like going all over the place, having single, blah blah blah. And then I started everything late, and then I realized when you seriously, I'm pregnant. It's like, all right, this isn't about me anymore, you
yeah,
know. And
yeah,
you get married, then you realize it's not about me, but it's
it's more.
that is just a slap, a good, a loving slap in the face to me.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
when it kicked in. It's like, okay, it's time to get your crap together. And
yeah,
well, I had my stuff together, but not like that.
yeah.
I was a good provider. I was good at my work. I was good at all these other things, but that's what really opened my eyes.
Yeah, I love that, and thank you for sharing about being a pilot. Not that I forgot that about you, but I didn't include it because I didn't know how much of that you wanted to share, so I appreciate you bringing that up because that was the big part of your life while your kids were little too, so that correlates with another question I'm gonna ask, so don't dive deeper on that yet. Anybody else wanna share? Brian, what about you, especially with your kids being so little?
Yeah, so my kids have a little bit of an age gap. I mean, I've got one that's going into being a freshman in high school right now, and I have one that's going into
Wow,
third grade. So, a little bit of an age gap there, but for me, it was really when kind of like with Paul, we waited until like I was in my 30s to have kids, and throughout 20s, I was a touring musician. I played and lived in a
I love
van.
that.
But a very similar situation to Paul, where we actually we had decided that we wanted to have kids at that point, and it was time to step up, and here's the responsibility. So it was something that we fully went into. Looking back, I wish we would have even done it a little sooner,
Mm.
but there's also the stability component of that, where where my wife and I wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
it wasn't something that we were just thrown into. We
Mhm.
had planned on it. We knew exactly, like, you never know fully what you're getting into, but we were ready.
That's great. How about you, Lacey? I'm curious, especially with one on its way out the door to
Yeah,
college and your high school. Like how but thinking back to that, do you have a moment where you thought to yourself because you did have each of you had a past life, right, while your kids were little
yeah.
and going through all the things because you did a lot of traveling before when they were younger. And so where did that shift maybe happen or did it happen like Paul, like right out the gate, you're like, damn, I gotta wake up.
I guess the biggest thing for me was growing up in a military family. It taught me adaptability and resilience. And so with fatherhood, it taught me responsibility. So I guess for me, the it became real when I realized my children were watching me. Tyler and
Yeah.
Chloe were actually watching more of what I did than what I was
Mhm.
saying. So I think at first it felt like a job, and I
Yeah.
always wanted to be a father. So that was the other thing.
Yeah.
Then one day, I think they may have been it was early. I realized my job was to model, like,
Mhm.
the behavior, how I handle stress, how I treat people, how I respond to adversity. Those lessons became it started absorbing them, so how I felt, they felt. My
Yeah.
personal story, it was after my separation, there were times where I was balancing my career, raising both of them, and then finishing my degree. I realized they weren't looking for a perfect father. They wanted the time, and they were looking for a present one. And that's when the responsibility came real. Became real.
Yeah.
I think someone mentioned responsibility. I think children don't become what we tell them; they become what they see or what's modeled.
Yeah, I think that's great, and bringing up the fact that you were raised in a military family, your father served in the Air Force for a very long time, but your
Mhm.
family is such a stable family, and your mom is an amazing human being because obviously she was the backbone to that. No insult to
Absolutely.
your father, right? But like Michael, he was the backbone to our family, right? I mean, a little
Mhm.
bit different. I mean, me being in the military my entire career, but I'm curious. Well, I want Michael to answer the question, but we're going to jump back into that in a second because I want to ask about how that shift of leadership happened and that shift in your own self. But let's let Michael answer and see. And then we're going to circle back to that because I'd love to understand that from each of you, because especially being a pilot, Paul, I wanted to bring that in because being a pilot, such a giant leadership scenario. But Michael, give me your like, how do you feel about that? When did you feel like, I mean, the children, I mean, I feel the thing I always resonate with, I think that kids people don't notice sometimes. I have 2 moments where I feel like people notice when their kids are watching is the first time you say "shit" and the kid repeats it, right? And a lot of times we're like, "Man, maybe I should stop cursing so much," right? Unfortunately, our kids did not. I used to curse all the time. Our kids did not ever say that. I would say "shit" and our son would say, "What happened?" He never repeat anyway, but the other time, a lot of
That's a
times
good.
is when you have a young daughter. Sons, for some reason, we don't pay them as much attention, but a young daughter, you'd be riding in the car and they start singing the songs. And you're like, wait a minute. They are paying attention now. We have to
Yeah,
change our music. That's a moment.
yeah,
That's what made me think of. But I'm just curious,
yeah,
Michael, for you, because I know that especially the music piece was a big one more with Alana than even with Ashley. Alana's our granddaughter. But just
yeah.
curious, was it younger than that that you noticed that they were watching you?
Mm,
Like, when did that responsibility shift happen? Or was it day 1 out the door? Like, you were like, "Damn, these kids are."
well, I mean, we had a little bit different family, right? Because it was like instant family for you and me.
Meaning I
So,
came to the table with a child, guys.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a past
Yeah.
life. Sorry.
It was like just add water, right?
Yeah.
And so I got to see that right away with Ashley because I don't know if you remember, but it wasn't very long and she actually started mimicking a lot of the things that I did.
Yeah, she was
Uh,
only 3 when you first met, and she was repeating your airborne commands, and it
mhm.
was
Yeah, we actually, when I would give her a bath when she was little, we used to do the airborne commands in the bathtub because we could yell in the bathtub and she just loved it.
yeah,
Ashley has always been a very loud human. And so it was a great place because it would echo, and then we would do all the airborne commands, and then I could actually do the hand gestures that the jump master does.
she
Like,
would do
you go
all
out
of it.
here and then you point the two fingers up like this, right? And then she would go, outboard personnel, stand up,
And she
right?
would be
And
yelling,
I would,
yeah,
yeah. And then you do the inside one like this, and then it's
yeah,
inboard personnel, stand up, right?
yeah,
And then you go like this, and she'd go, hook up, right?
yeah,
Which means you stack your static line to it. And then you go like this, and she'd be like, jumper, stand in the door,
yes,
right? I mean, I'm telling you, like she had it
yeah,
down.
yeah.
And then we do
So,
this, and then she would yell, 30 seconds, right? Oh, and
yeah. So
um,
so so what you're saying really, by the time we had Ty, because she was six and a half by the
yeah,
time Ty
like
came along, you
Ty,
knew,
yeah, Ty
but
was a whole other animal, though.
but that
You
didn't stop
know,
you from playing Baby Got Back in the car with him. That's why I said it was different for boys, 'cause
no, and
when
you know
Ty
what's
was like
funny
5,
is
that was his favorite song. Like,
no, actually, Cowboy was his favorite song
well, that's
by
because
Kid
of,
Rock, right?
yeah, but that
And
was because of that one. Yeah,
but I'll
yeah.
tell you what, I remember when that song "Sex and Candy" was playing in the '90s, and I'd always loved it, but I mean, I'm a young adult and whatever, and the one thing I will say about Ashley is she would learn the words, but she would never understand what she was saying. She was just singing,
Just
right?
saying.
But the first time you hear this 5 or 6 year old little girl turn around talking about sex and candy, you're like,
I never
oh
knew about
well, that's the end of a great song, right?
Mhm.
I never knew about
Yep.
that. Thanks for sharing that on a podcast, babe.
Well, I mean, it killed the vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Thanks,
yeah,
Ashley.
yeah.
Yeah,
Kids will
one
do
thing,
that for you.
yeah, yeah. One thing I personally have noticed throughout my own leadership journey is that leadership isn't something that we turn on and off, right? And that's why I wanted to circle into the word leadership for a few minutes is
Mhm.
the lessons tend to follow us everywhere, which kind of brings us, I'm going to bring it into the next question really is how has fatherhood changed the way you lead professionally? Like what lessons from being a dad have made you a better even employee or entrepreneur or manager or business owner, teammate or leader, or even circling it back from your parenthood, like being a father. And the reason I'm asking this is because you each do come from different, very, very different backgrounds. Whether your father was super active in your life or wasn't super active, you have found a way to be that strong father. Lacey, that's why I was saying about your mom being that backbone at home. I don't want to say your father wasn't there. I mean, my kids would always say how active I was, but I wasn't home a lot, right? But drawing that, being that father you are now, each of you, how are you bringing that into professionalism? Do you see the blend or shift at all? I'm just curious.
I kind of saw it the other way around. I mean, as an airline captain, I think I was really good with my crew. You're in charge
Yeah,
of the ship, and you're not just in charge of the ship or the flight attendants, but you also got the baggage handlers, and so your
yeah,
team is
okay,
actually quite larger than people really anticipate. Dispatchers, gate agents, whatnot. So when I sign that document, that ship is mine, like it belongs to me legally. So I don't know if people really know that. So that is my responsibility. So I was very good with my workers because I realized that letting people do what they do is the best thing to do. And they're going to do their job right if they're not getting chased down all the time about doing
yeah,
things because it freaks
yeah,
people out. But there also wasn't a question like, you do this, period. And with a kid, you have to it's the opposite. You kind of have to have that shift. Don't tell them. It's like when people say that, what's that word? Don't do as I do, do as I say. Like that, I
yeah,
think the shittiest piece of parenting
yeah,
advice you could possibly give.
right,
So to me, it's kind of like, why do I want you to do this? They're human
yeah,
beings, so are my crew members, but they're learning. Like these people
yeah,
should know their job and know their place. The kids don't know that. Like when you tell them to do something, they there should be. It's not just do it because I say. It's
right,
it's it's more of a, so I had to make that shift going the other way. So like I was much more sterile in my work environment, and I had to pull that over. But also when you're coming from the airline into entrepreneurship and you're dealing with people, you have to deal with them much differently because now you're not dealing with the crew, you're dealing more with like individual, I guess. I mean,
individuals. Yeah,
crew members are individuals too, but I think you guys
it's
understand
different.
where I'm going.
It's different.
But
Yeah,
like that was a big shift for me going the other way. Like I know you're kind of saying, where does parenthood bring me that way? But I guess it does go both ways because it did make me more patient, like learning
yeah,
patience from the
yeah,
kids. It allowed me to be patient towards my like my workforce
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that and having that revelation because they do go back and forth quite a bit, especially when you're talking about leadership and professionalism. But in that moment, you did also recognize that your kids were watching you and that's how they were learning, right? And I love the fact that you brought up that expression. I hate that expression actually. I mean, but it's a terrible expression because the humans, even your employees, the people around you, or other people, even other managers or other they're watching you, right? People
Mhm.
in general are watching you and they a lot of times will emulate things you're doing if you're a good leader, right? No matter whether we're talking about children. I mean, obviously we're talking about fatherhood right now, but in that aspect, I mean, talking about your crew and the people on the ground, I never until you told us recently about that, Paul, that you signed for the ship and everything is yours. I find that very interesting because I never thought about that those people putting the suitcases in the plane, that's all part of your responsibility when you're flying that plane. And so I love that piece and then shifting that concept to parenthood, right? And your children and the fact that people are people, right? Yeah, I'm curious what everybody else feels about that. How have you shifted that leadership concept into back and forth even from
Yeah.
personal to professional, fatherhood to work, all the things?
Yeah, for me, ditto what Paul said about the patience. I had to learn the patience. And I think it taught me empathy, patience,
Mm,
perspective. I think earlier in like my career, I thought being a leader or leading without being the leader was
mm,
meant having all the answers, right? So
yeah.
fatherhood taught me like leadership is helping others discover themselves or helping others help themselves.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
For my employer, I work with, I think I'm probably one of the older people. Sometimes I'm older than managers. So I find myself leading and mentoring engineers to solve complex issues or challenges, or most of the time unblocking them. I've learned that through even through my kids, like people develop at different speeds.
Yeah.
How Tyler operates versus how my daughter Chloe operates, it's totally
Yeah.
different. I began to blanket them all together. And I think just
Absolutely.
like children grow, can't be forced. Like you can't force growth, it can only be supported. So I ended up, I think last year I started a project where I created parable labs,
Mm,
and the idea came from realizing that teaching isn't about showing how much,
yeah.
but it's about helping someone understand something that they do know, and learning that way. So I think sometimes the best parents and the best leaders kind of do the same thing. So if lead with
Yeah.
something, it's more so communication I like my time. It's all about tone for me when I'm speaking to my son,
Yeah.
and not holding any punches when speaking to my daughter, right?
Yeah.
And so it's something that someone understands.
No, I
Uh,
I actually love that, and I love the fact that I'll let you talk in a second, Michael, but I love the fact that you brought up about them being individuals. So many parents I talk to, and I think each one of you actually are like this with your children, but I feel like so many people just clump their parenting into their children. They don't consider that whether you have 2 kids, actually, even if you have 1 kid, they're different than all their friends, right? They clump all of it together. They're children, they're all the same. And the best example I have is our son is 28 and he is in a very dynamically different age group, right? He's in a very interesting age group where Mm, I don't wanna say this in case we have listeners. It's a very weird age group. I'm just gonna say that, very weird age. So we'll say to him often, forgetting that he was raised by us, we'll say, "What's wrong with your people, Ty?" And he'll say, "That's not me, dude. That's not me. I'm a very different person." And we have to remind ourselves that he is. He was raised in a very different environment. Being a military kid is lazy. It's a very different being raised by military families. You have to have different perspective. You have to but it's funny that and I appreciate you saying that and our listeners being able to hear that is don't look at your kids like they're the same people. Treat them differently. They are different. Even if you have twins, we have friends that have twins, like they're dynamically different human beings, even if they're identical. So I appreciate you saying that, Lacey. Michael, I'm sorry, what were you going to chime in with?
no, I was gonna say I have the unfair advantage of having Lacey as my neighbor and a very close confidant. So I gotta tease him a little bit because, like, one of the things that, just to throw it out there, like, where I grew up in America, you were either white or Hispanic. So, yeah, I mean, I was in the army, and there's a large diversity in there, and you learn certain things. But as life kind of continues on, there's questions that arise, and Lacey has always been absolutely amazing because he knows where my heart is, so I can say whatever I'm saying, and he knows even if it comes out wrong, that's not how I mean it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
his patience with that are amazing. But when he's saying that he grew patience from being a kid, knowing his background, and he's a child of one of five, so he always had to wait even for attention, right?
yeah,
Like it's hard for me to turn
yeah,
around and see that he wasn't already patient.
yeah,
That's a fact.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and you're
you
like
know
one
what
of the
I mean?
younger ones, aren't you, Lacey? You're one of the younger ones, aren't you?
I'm the oldest boy.
Oh,
The
you
oldest
are?
boy,
Why did
yeah.
I
Yeah,
oh, because
oldest
I'd
boy.
met your sisters. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic. Yeah, maybe that is
Yeah.
why you're so patient, Lacey. We'll blame it on that, not having children.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm just
I'm
Yeah,
a,
saying,
I'm I'm
right?
an adopted
yeah.
I'm an adopted only child, so I had to learn a lot.
Yeah, adopted only
Yeah,
child. Michael's an only child also. He had no
dude,
understanding of
dude.
teenage daughters and siblings.
Well, it's funny now that Caden and Sammy, Caden just graduated high school going to college, and Sammy's just starting high school this year. It's funny because of being an only child, even though I kind of the neighbors had five boys and a girl, so I was kind of like an extra brother. So I got it a little bit. But when they do that stupid bickering at that age, it's just like I had a hard time putting my hands around it. And April just like that's just the way that's what they do. And I'm like, because it would drive me crazy. I'm like, you need to love each other. But it's well, they
Right.
are.
Yeah.
In their own weird way, they
No.
are.
Like, dude, check this out. This is something I learned. And even to this day, I have to ask myself, am I parenting the right way for the situation? Because one of the things that I've learned, so I grew up in a household that I wouldn't wish on anybody, truthfully. Right. So I had basically had a mother that was there, but she was more of an absentee because she was still trying to live, like to this day, she's still trying to live her teenage years. And then I had a stepfather that didn't like kids. And so it's just a recipe for disaster. So I had to go make my own. My one neighbor was kind of like my mom, and my other neighbor was kind of like my father. But even with that, even though my whole focus on parenting was to not do what they did to me, right? And to be there for the kids. But you don't realize it. Some of that toxic behavior still seeps into you because you were in it for so long, and you have to like course correct constantly. I think to me that was the biggest challenge even today in when it comes to parenting personally, because
Well,
it's hard.
I look at things from the opposite side of that because I was being adopted. I was actually truly blessed. Like my parents were like over the top on things, but
Yeah.
my expectation level was like this. And I was more of you need to be this successful. You don't get an attaboy. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the way
Yeah.
it worked. They were loving people, but you didn't get that. So for me, that was really important to make sure you show that gratitude or not gratitude, I guess is not the best word. Like give them that affirmation and give them that, not like the hoodoo guru affirmation,
Mhm.
affirmation where they don't deserve it, but just when they do a good job, give them the attaboys and like that. I think that goes a long, long way. So I see we all see things a little bit differently because I was adopted into a crazy family, so it was very, very blessed, but it was just different. So it made my parenting journey different, right? So I
Mhm.
had a different perspective where I'm like, I really wanted that and I didn't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
and it's funny because you have April that wants you need four jobs because she comes from her background. You need to work
Cool.
12 jobs, this and that and the other thing. To me, I'm like, I don't want to give that grace. I want to give them the attaboard. I want them to not be as restricted and hardcore. I want them to be a little bit more open. So I think that our surroundings from childhood definitely follow through into adulthood and how you react to situations.
Brian has such a unique background because I mean, I'm curious to hear about like maybe how your childhood turned you into who you are because you had this whole rock band version of
That's
you
what I was about to
that
say.
got
Rock
around
and
into
roll.
show, and I actually love this version of you, Brian, because most people that know you now as this giant IT nerdorama, hate to say
Mhm.
that about you, Brian, but that's the way people see you. But I love the rock band version of you. I want to hear some of that, like bringing that from your childhood. Like, what were your parents musicians? Is that what brought you to this crazy world you're in now?
No, actually not. So my family, my mom's side was military family. My dad's side predominantly farmers, and so kind of country living.
Mm.
And so there was a lot of work ethic. There was a lot of that kind of that was brought in. My dad's side, very, very Asian. Come home with the B, it's like, what's wrong with you? That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so there was definitely an emphasis on success, making sure that you are striving for excellence at every turn. And I think that for me, it also built quite a bit of grit and resilience, right? You've got to,
Mm.
you have to do what you need to do. Regarding like being a musician for several years, I think for me that again, grit and resilience, it taught me you're get told no. You're gonna have to just suck it up
Mhm.
and deal with it. You're gonna have critics that say it's like going to the comment sections of YouTube or Reddit, right? And you're gonna get just if you don't have thick skin, especially
Yeah.
around criticism and critique,
Mhm.
you're gonna get eaten alive.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I think that that's one of the things that it taught me as far as translating that over to being a dad and then also being an an employer, entrepreneur, so on and so forth. For me, it's a lot about empathy, accountability, and adaptability, as Lacey and Paul had already kind of mentioned, right?
Mhm.
There are certain elements of that I have to be empathetic to the fact that like both of my kids are very, very different personality types. I've gotta you have to understand that and be able to adapt to either one. There's the empathy component, like, I may not fully be able to put myself in their shoes, but trying to relate, or some maybe relatability would be the better way to describe that. And then accountability, right? I'm gonna let you screw up in a safe environment, but it's on you when you screw up, and we're gonna use
Yeah.
that as a training and a lesson
Mhm.
Yeah.
and all of that. But I think that for me, that's one of those things that as a parent, at least for me, it was really hard to let go and be like, I can see where this road is going. I've seen it time and time again. And from touring and being a musician for shoot, it was close to 15 years. There's a lot of things that I've seen that when the kids come and they're like, try and no, that wasn't me that did it. I'm like, come
Right.
on.
Yeah.
I've seen a
Yeah.
lot more than
Yeah.
what you're leaning on here. Let's be honest. So I think that that's one of the things that really kind of translates for me is also being able to identify that, right? Like is be it with my kids or in business, you were late. Okay, I get it. Sometimes things happen. Maybe the project didn't turn out the way that we thought, so on and so forth. But again, there's empathy, accountability, and adaptability
Yeah.
to that. And being able to translate all of those skills to both business and personal is you can't separate the two. I don't care what people say as far as work-life balance. It's really tough to turn off and be one persona and then the other. You kind of have to come all in.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree with that. I'm actually glad you said that because I was trying to think of a way to bring in how, for Michael anyway, and not to speak for him, I'll let him speak in a minute about this. But I think that Michael and I both being military and raising our kids, both of our children are well into adulthood at this point. Our daughter has a daughter, and our son is 28 and has had a girlfriend for 7 years and all the things, right? So they're in a very different, Michael's in a very different season of life than all of you. But the thing is, what I've recognized raising children being military parents, being in the military and having certain structure, certain firmness behind like our children having to understand respect, understand leadership, like right out the gate, like understanding all of those things right out the gate.
Mhm.
They're very different human beings. But the funny thing I recognize with Michael, you keep saying, Brian, about like empathy, adaptability. Like you didn't mention Michael before when he was talking about this, and it's because at this point our children are adults, but with our granddaughter, he's been having to learn empathy, adaptability, and all of it because she is a different human, right? She's and we accept that, right? We accept she's very different than either one of them. She does understand respect because we were both in the military and she does know that, but it's different. She's not submerged in it. She doesn't have to see all these officers coming to the house or enlisted senior leaders to the
Mhm.
house and yes ma'am, no ma'am, and be in the back seat because you have an adult getting in the car. Our kids are adults, but if any of our military friends come visit, they will get in the back seat.
of a vehicle because they are not adults when those people are right, but she doesn't have to deal with that. And I personally love it. So I'm curious to hear from Michael now because you are actually like the whole empathy, like empathy is not something Michael's good at, by the way. So I
Mhm.
actually enjoy seeing that piece of him with Alana. That's a piece of him that I didn't always see with our children because I wasn't home a lot, but I think it's different now. Like it's different as a grandparent. Obviously, everybody loves being a grandparent because it's different than being a parent, but we spend a lot of time with her. Right. And so, Michael,
Well,
I'm curious what that feels like in that shift of difference. What can you tell these dudes that are all in different
mhm,
seasons of life as they
mhm,
are shifting and like evolving in this leadership?
mhm.
What could you speak to that in that?
Well, Lana and I have a very unique relationship, I think, because she can be in the middle of a rage fight with her mom, and most of the time, I can actually pry her away just by going, "Come here, honey," and she's like, "No, honey, just come here." "Ah," and I'm like, "No, sir, come, just come here. Come sit on my lap. Come give me a hug." Right? And you have to admit she does it, right? And it's just to get her to calm down a little bit, so like the fight can end, and then I can talk some reason into her.
It's the empathy
Um,
piece. You're giving that
you
to
know,
her. So, yeah.
but like I was really lucky because in the army I had a guy named Sergeant Covarrubias, and everybody called him Sergeant C, and he had a really shitty growing up, and he spent a lot of time mentoring me when we were in the field. And I also had a guy named Robin Waterbury. He was also a Green Beret, and he mentored me a lot coming out of high school and stuff. And so I've taken that into my parenting. And even if you ask my son, he'll tell you the best thing about his dad was that he always took the time to explain the world to him when it didn't make sense. And so, like, I try to do that even with our granddaughter because if you can help them make sense of the world, then they can process, I think, everything else.
I think that's
And
actually a problem with young people right now. Not to cut you off, I'll let you continue in a
mhm,
second. But I think that's a
sure.
problem with a lot of young people now because a lot of young people have both parents working full
Mhm,
time.
mhm,
And so taking the time to have those conversations, having the patience, sitting back and listening to what they have to say is really hard sometimes. And I don't know if you'd like to share any advice with our listeners on that, or even with these guys. Like
mhm.
Brian's got it. Brian, I did not realize your one child actually is going into high school now. I thought they were still
Yeah,
in
he's a
middle school. So
freshman.
wow, I didn't
Yeah,
No,
realize
he's a
that. Well,
freshman this year.
yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
uh-huh,
crazy.
young men as freshmen, that's a whole thing, so good luck with that. People
yeah,
Thank
say
you.
it's
Well,
girls.
Godspeed.
Everybody complains about girls, like girls growing girl the boys,
no,
when they get to high school, it's a whole thing. A
no,
whole thing.
that
And
was
those
a
of you that are
breeze
all of
compared
you
to
are
Ashley. Come on.
no, that's not true. It was a whole thing because it's different, right? They worry about different things.
To kind of dovetail on what we're talking
Yeah,
about here,
no.
I think one of the big things that has been difficult for me, and I've been really trying to impart upon my kids, is the whole idea, and I know we've talked about this, but let it land, right? Even
Yeah,
like what Michael was
Yeah.
talking about with Alana, right? Just let it land. Like,
yeah.
I get it that you're upset. I get
Mhm,
that this is not what you're wanting to hear, but let it land. Take a breath. Then let's talk through it. But going right into,
mhm,
and this is something
90
that has
miles
been
an
very
hour.
difficult for me,
Yeah.
is just jumping right in, and I want to figure it out. Okay, I see a problem. Let's fix it. Problem, fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's not necessarily the way that kids need to hear the message. And quite frankly,
no,
like they aren't as receptive to it either. If you're just like,
mhm,
well, this is what you need to do, they're like, but that's not, it's okay.
Yeah.
I need to let it land. They need to let it
mhm,
land. Then we can
yeah,
talk about it logically and
Well,
civilly
yeah,
you're
afterwards.
also teaching them problem solving skills, right? I mean,
Mhm.
yeah,
I know Lacey is actually very good at this, not to throw Lacey under the
mhm,
bus, but he's really good at and because I've heard him, especially with his daughter, I've heard him off to the
mhm,
side trying to be super quiet and like trying to have her evaluate different things, but letting her troubleshoot it, letting her walk through
yeah.
it. I've seen it so much with Tyler, but I'm
He
sure
did that a lot with Tyler too. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean,
So,
I like to applaud you for that, Lacey, like, because that's a thing that I think that we forget sometimes. Paul said he had to learn patience himself when he had his children, but why are we teaching our children these problem-solving skills? Because what it does actually is it teaches patience, right? That's
Mhm.
the difference with all of us, no matter how old any of us are on this call. when we were all growing up, our parents didn't believe in patience. Just go F and do a thing and get it done. Go get the good grades, go get the job, go do a good job, right? That's the way it was. But now, even with our kids, we listen to them. We want to help them. We want to give them problem solving skills. We want those things for them because we don't want them to go through those struggles, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hear from
Even
some of you about
even though they're adults, we still do the same thing with that.
we do the same thing, right? Like, let's work through this.
One thing I like to bring up, which
Yeah.
since we talk about Lacey, that he gets is like when you have that, when you're dealing with the two separate families and you got an ex-wife and you got this and that. And since this is a Father's Day thing, I'm gonna say it, but women deserve single moms deserve all the credit in the world. But I truly feel that single dads don't get the recognition they deserve because we
Facts.
have to play the same game. We have to do the same thing on the same level. And the biggest thing that I found with dealing with this is doesn't matter what lessons you're teaching, they're going back to a whole other thing.
Family.
Like
Yeah.
she's remarried, she's got so like you have to take your time and use it wisely and teach
Yeah.
the right thing. So it's very hard. So it's like, if you're under the same roof, it's that constant input all the time. So it never deviates. It's always like that. But when you're a single dad, she's going back over that. The kids are going back over there and they're unlearning. They're
Yeah.
I'm not saying she's a bad mom. I'm not saying that
No,
at all. Your morals and values on these kids. And
Yeah.
then they go and now they're dealing with a whole other set. So you got to show, and that's what I was saying. You can't just tell them things. You have to show it to them so it locks in.
My next question was exactly that. So it was not just about single dads. I would love to hear from Lacey how he actually feels about that because I know I mean, I think Lacey, you have a decent relationship with their mom, but still, you're still unlearning things, relearning things because your kids go back and forth every week. So it's learning things, unlearning things, relearning things, having to talk about it, having to sit down. My next question completely related to that, even as a dad, right? Just as a dad in general, dads don't get enough accolades for the record. Dads don't. Moms always get the accolades. I think for Michael and I, it's different. In fact, on Mother's Day, I actually give Michael Mother's Day gifts, and he equally sometimes gives me Father's Day gifts because in our relationship, we've had to be both roles, right? And I think in a lot of relationships, we don't do that enough. We don't give the other person the accolades they deserve, whether we're together or apart. But when you're apart, oh my God, it's even more so, right, Lacey? I mean, I love to hear from you, Lacey, on that to applaud
Yeah,
that dad moment, right?
it's the last thing you said. At times, I've felt like, it could be true, it could be over inflated, but I've felt like I've had to be the mother and the father at times.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this is honestly like I even in the separation, it was more so I cared more about the kid, right? And I overdid it.
Yeah.
I tried to protect them in ways that
Yeah.
probably were unhealthy at the time. I enrolled them in every possible extracurricular activity you could. I had my daughter playing rugby. Commute wise, it was hard to get her across town to get her something else. So we
Lacey,
both played rugby.
I got pause you on that just for 1 second because nobody knows Chloe, but she's a girly girl. So that's
Yeah.
very
So
funny,
do you can
right? I mean,
imagine her.
she's just so everybody knows, she's brilliant, and I'm talking like
Oh,
photographic
absolutely.
memory
Oh,
brilliant, but she's very, very girly, right? And so
Yeah.
you're putting her into this roughneck
rugby.
sport, which is
I remember
hysterical.
I was playing Uber before Uber, right? So I was absolutely, that's what they called me. It was like the
Yeah.
Uber dad. He's
Yeah.
always driving. So I think I overdid it in that sense, but absolutely I had to learn how to cook, right? Even while in the situation, I'm used to cooking for myself, but I had to cook for kids, right? And so when I say patience, I mean there's a patience where one could be a picky eater, and I've just given up. This is what I'm cooking. This is what we're having, right?
Yeah. That's what you got to
Yeah.
do.
Um,
Yeah.
absolutely, and I think the tendency to kind of come in and try to save them and protect them was my mother and fatherly instinct, kind of seeing what was modeled for me. Because again, my dad was deployed a lot, and so I saw my mom do it with 6 kids. That
Yeah.
and every one of us are a year apart. So it was groups. And I think one of the things that my dad purchased was a video camera. So we have loads of videos that we can look back on and kind of
Mhm.
give my mom her flowers. But my father was in there, but it was my mother. So I did get a piece of that growing up. So it wasn't as hard for me to pivot to almost like the traditional roles in a sense. I think for me, the single fatherhood, I leaned more into my kids. I
Yeah.
didn't date afterwards. I was cognizant of what they were saying and what was being modeled.
Yeah, but I think that some degree that that's super there's times in lives, whether you have a double parent in a household or not, there
Mhm.
are times that that role has to happen. I'm sure Brian
Mhm.
even experiences. I know Michael even did, but Michael I think about this very often, especially now because Alana, our granddaughter, asks a lot of questions about me being
Mhm.
gone and things like that. And more now, I actually thank Michael out of the blue. He'll be like, "What the hell are you thanking me for?" But like seriously, because he was a single dad most of my
Most of the
career.
time. Most of the time.
I
Yeah.
didn't live at home. Even when I wasn't
Yeah.
deployed, I lived down the street, I lived in Georgia, I lived in South Carolina, I lived all over the place, and so he was a
Or you
single dad.
were at a, or you were out of school, or you were deployed, or like you were in
Right,
the
right.
field, or yeah, you were
Don't
always
yeah.
gone, right?
I mean, I was always active
Yeah.
in the children's lives, don't get me wrong, so
Yeah.
if you ever ask them that question, they will say that I
Right.
was always active because I would drive home in the end of a day. I would be drinking a 5-hour energy to get home
Mm-hmm.
to get an
My five
event.
hour energy to get back. Yeah.
And then they take some Tylenol PM at night to go to sleep and then take a 5-hour to get back by 4 in the morning, whatever. But the thing is, each one of you as dads has such an important role, no matter what season you are in dadhood, right? But the thing is that I don't really think that dads get enough accolades. That's why I wanted to really have this. I mean, it wasn't just because I did a mom one. I wanted to do this because I don't think dads get enough accolades. Whether you're a single dad,
Yeah.
with your alone dad, whether you're wearing both hats, like Lacey, you had to, over you were overcompensating. I overcompensate all the time. Lacey, tell Michael it's okay. But or Brian, who fortunately has an amazing wife that stands there when he's traveling all over the damn world,
Yeah.
doing all the things. But the thing is I don't think that dads get enough accolades because children are watching you. Children are
Yeah.
looking up to you. Michael didn't have an active father in his life, but fortunately, he had a guy down the street, Robin, who was somebody Michael emulated to the point of Michael joining the army, wanted to be a Green Beret just because this guy was a Green Beret in Vietnam. Like he emulated that. So even though it wasn't a birth father to Michael, it filled I almost said those boots, filled those shoes for Michael.
Mhm.
But children, these people are watching you. Our children are adults. They're still watching Michael. They're still calling him. We were in New Orleans. I told Michael, we're taking 4 days during our anniversary, no phone calls, no work, no anything. And one of the days he was on and off the phone all day long. I'm like,
With our
who
son.
are you talking
Yeah.
to? And he was like,
Yeah.
Ty, he's trying to fix these cabinet doors for his girlfriend's
Yeah.
parents and he needs help. He needs guidance. So even though our kids are adult, they're still looking up
Yeah.
to him. And so don't think because whatever season you're in, like Lacey, your amazing Tyler is just moving up the street. That kid's going to come home. He's going to call you. He's going to ask you, what
Yeah.
drill do I need? Dad? What kind of toothbrush should I buy? What deodorant do I need? Paul, your kid is going to be down the road. He's going to be at college. You're going to think, oh, I'm
Mhm.
scot free. I've only got my daughter now. No, hell no.
No.
He is going to be calling. He's going to ask, how do you fold a fitted sheet, Dad? You're going to be like, I'm going to have
I,
April make a video for you.
Well,
I,
it's funny. It's
I,
funny you say that because I do not. Well, Michael's kind of from this neck of the woods where I'm at. I'm in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm a Jersey boy
yeah,
originally.
yeah,
I do not fit in up here. I do not like it up here. I don't want any part of it. But outside
Yeah.
of that, I'm like, I want to go to Tennessee or I want to move somewhere like when
yeah,
the kids get older. But I'm like you just said, they'll never not be a part of my life. What
of
happens
course.
is
Yeah.
you got grandkids, then you got this.
Yeah,
So like,
Yeah.
probably end up having like multiple locations, like houses and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I have to sit back. Oh, where are they going to end up? I'm not going to lie. I push them to go to school back in the South. Like I'm
yeah,
trying to get them back there so they stay, and then I can
yeah.
follow. I've already noticed that because like the retirement and all this other stuff down the road. It doesn't. It never ends. It
Yeah.
never ends.
Yeah,
Sure.
Brian, you're about to have somebody in the hopper, so you gotta listen to this. I mean,
Right.
kids might want I mean, Colorado is an amazing place to be, so they may wind up staying there, and I know you love it there. But the big thing is you don't know, right? You don't know. I mean,
Oh yeah.
that's why Michael and I are like full-fledged buying an RV probably next year in the spring. We're all in now because we
Yeah.
don't, right? And I mean, fortunately, our granddaughter loves being with us right now, but we're gonna start stalking her because she's about to be in her teenage years where she doesn't want to be around us. We're going to be in her backyard. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Papa and
I'm
Sophie
at
have
that. I'm at
Papa and
that
Sophie
age.
have money.
Yeah.
The,
Well,
So
well,
go
the
ahead.
Paul,
kids are at that age where it's like it doesn't even matter. It's these
yeah,
are my days, right? Like
yeah,
no, they're going out and doing all kinds of crap. Like
yeah,
they're running off to this, they're running
yeah,
off to that. They're like Lacey, they're like in every sport known to mankind. So
yeah.
it's just kind of like are they my days? I don't think so. It's
I don't
their
think,
days.
yeah,
Whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the time I do have with them,
yeah,
that's the one thing I've learned is you take every second of that and you appreciate that. It's not something given to you. It's a true
It
blessing.
is.
That
yeah,
time you have is there.
Yeah.
So those
yeah.
those gifts from God to me. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Brian
So
does the same thing. He was on the lounge, our membership group last week, and I think it was last week. You were on a playground with your kids, right? Or at least your
Oh
younger
yeah.
one.
Well,
Yeah.
I think being present, that's the big thing that
Good.
I'm really trying to focus on just as far as growth as a operator and business owner
yeah.
is I want to be more present there, looking back at my daughter's youth, it was trying to scale, trying to do business, trying to do all of this. And while I was a stay-at-home dad, there was a certain element that I feel like may have been missed a little bit because I was trying to juggle the two and not quite as present as I should have been. And so for me, that's one of the things that in scaling out my team, in actually taking on that role of more of that CXO position, being able to say, you know what, and after the podcaster, we're probably going to go to the park again today.
Love
Summer break with the kids. And it's one of those
Yeah.
things that I'm like, I am privileged and very lucky to be able to say, you know what, let's go ahead. Let's actually like, be it AI or the team, kick it out to them.
Yeah,
That way I can
Mhm.
focus on things that I actually want to do, be a little bit more present with my kids and leverage this opportunity.
I love that. I love that. At the end of my podcast, I usually ask my guests, what is one thing you can leave our listeners with that they can learn from? But in this one, actually, what I'd like to do is I would love to ask each of you, what is one thing that you hope your children remember the most when they look back one day?
That I chose them over work.
I love that. Literally almost made me cry. I love that. I love that because I don't know that you would have said that last year. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, what about you?
Well, since we brought sports up, like when I'm
Go
sitting
Knicks.
there, hey, Brian gets it as a pilot, like I had to do everything. I missed a lot of crap. Like I missed a lot of individual sport events. I had to bid things like my trips to fit around all this stuff. And so I could make this kid's birthday, but I couldn't make that kid's birthday. And I could do this event, I couldn't do that event. But to me, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Like they both are very big into sports, and I don't miss nothing now. I don't miss nothing. And that's what I love, the difference between airline pilot. I was able to teach them structure. There's a lot of structure behind that. But as an entrepreneur, it's control. You could control your environment more. Like you're able to do things like if you don't do that, you're not eating. That's just the way it is. But my thing is the look my son or my daughter, they both do it, and it just strikes me. They look up into the stands, and they just look, and I know in their mind they're going there.
There he is. There he
He's
is.
there.
I love
And
that.
I know they think that. And that to me, it like breaks my heart in such a beautiful way. It's the most intense feeling
Cry.
that I can ever feel. It's just like
Yeah.
he's there. And that's all.
It's
And
cry.
I want them to know that I'll always be there.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Literally gonna be crying by the time this is over. Lacey, what about you?
I think I've earned the degrees, right? I've built a career, I've started small businesses. I think one of the most things that I'm proud of is watching Tyler and Chloe, if you're listening, that they have become good people or will become good people.
Yeah.
Tyler, as you head off to college, and Chloe, as you're finding your voice, everything else was always secondary. I think fatherhood has taught me was the greatest leadership development program of my life.
I love that.
It taught me humility, patience, resilience,
Yeah.
accountability. Growing up as a military kid, I learned the resilience. Being a father, I learned responsibility. I was taught responsibility. I think we said that on the call.
Yeah.
And then stewardship,
Yeah.
having the stewardship.
Yeah. That's the perfect word.
I did want to add something before that I think is super important for just parents in general, not just dads, is that even though it was very difficult for me to play mom sometimes because I was literally just coming out of the army where it was always fucking suck it up, right?
Yeah.
And that was really challenging for me to step into the role of like they're crying and I'm like, "Well, why are you crying right now?" Right? It just makes no sense. But to get to a point where you realize that you have to, as, even as a very masculine male, absorb a certain amount of femininity to, even though they're crying and it's irritating, reach down and give them a hug and tell them it's going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
To actually transcend from both like roles that way. And the kids will never truly remember majority of that or like how difficult that was for me, especially growing up in the 90s where it was like they would bash gay people and be like, "Are you queer? Are you gay? What the hell's wrong with you?"
Wanted to make it like I want people,
Right.
our listeners to know that's not the way you believe, that's what was being said
Oh,
back
not
then.
at not at
Yeah.
Just wanted
all.
to make that
Right?
clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, but growing up in that environment
It
where
was, it
you
was.
you punch each other in the arm because it hurts your friends and you think that's funny, right?
Right.
That was the environment, and then I went from that into special forces, right, which is that on steroids. And
Yeah.
then to come home
Having
and
children.
then
Yeah.
to learn, like, that they need this from you, and you're the only person that can give it to them, and you have to become that. It's very important, I think, even especially for I know Brian does it because he was there having a stare down contest with a buffalo the other day while his kids were playing. And I know Paul does it because he's present for his kids. But we don't ever stop to be like, what does that look like and why do we need to do that? I think.
Yeah,
Um,
but I hate to say this to you, and I'll let you finish that way you can tell what you want your kids to
yeah.
remember someday, but I
Mm,
hate to tell you, but your kids do remember that. We never have believed in putting our hands on our children, we've never spanked them. We believed in talking to them to have them understand good, bad, understand reason, understand decision making and things like that, but I think that you don't really realize how much the children actually do remember those moments of those hugs, even though you it was hard for you. But
yeah.
anyway, go ahead and finish, I'm sorry.
I
Well, I was
just
gonna
wanted
say,
to interject
Yeah,
real quick. I
yeah,
personally, coming from a Jersey boy, I think
yeah,
hugging your child makes you more of a man, not less of a man.
absolutely.
oh
Truest
yeah. I mean, I've always hugged my kids and stuff, but in the moment of them like yelling at you and then all of a sudden they're crying and you're like, what? Right? It's
but all you can do
to
is hug
put
them,
that
I think, yeah,
right, to put your own frustrations aside and just say, "Come
yeah,
here," is very feminine energy, and it's totally against most masculine energy because masculine energy wants to meet objection with objection,
but that's
is
just
what
the
I was
best way
getting
to
at,
say it, you're saying,
and
yeah,
which is not necessarily the best way, right?
right. So what
But
is it you want your children to remember someday?
the fun
The
times,
lectures, the
the fun times.
lectures.
The Nerf gun fights running through the house, the
Yeah,
going to the beaches and me throwing the kids into the water. Right?
yeah,
Just
literally,
the
throw
times that were funs or like the times that I drove Thai all over the entire East Coast for Taekwondo or like the pool parties that I jumped in the pool with the kids with Ashley when she was having and
yeah.
even as a teenager grabbing her from the side of the pool and jumping in with her, like just grabbing a
Oh
hold
my
of her where she had no chance. Yeah, and she would freak out my hair and be like, "Well, it's
yeah,
wet now," right?
yeah.
Just just throwing it to the wind and having a moment of just spontaneity and fun. That's
I
what I hope they
appreciate
remember.
yeah. I think that they will, and I appreciate that you're saying that because honestly, our lives were always, especially since 9/11, were always
Mhm,
tumultuous with them growing up. I mean, there were many nights our children cried themselves to sleep with you holding them
mhm,
because I was gone. And so hopefully they do only remember the fun parts, right? Not those
yeah,
moments. And you did give them that brevity of fun because I am funny, but I'm not the
mhm.
most silly and
Spontaneous. Yeah.
spontaneous person.
Mhm.
So I do actually appreciate that about you, that you are like that and you've grown into that. You've grown into who that human is. And I think that that will be the moments that the children remember. We'll have to see what happens as they get a little older. But I've kept you guys on here a little longer than an hour and I appreciate each one of you. I think that this was a really important call to have. I loved having you here talking about fatherhood not just about leadership. I know I talk about leadership a lot. We did throw a little bit in there, a little bit of professionalism, but it's more about dads and the dads that are going to listen, that maybe think that they have to be hard on their kids, and hearing each one of you in this very vulnerable way saying, shit, you don't have to be so hard. You have to sometimes listen because they're going to watch you no matter what you do. Right. I
Yeah.
think that I appreciate each of you and the different seasons you are in life. And Michael, you even bringing up how sitting down with Alana sometimes, even though she's having a meltdown, and just having that moment with her, and each one of you having those moments with your children, and allowing our listeners to hear that being vulnerable as dads is okay, and celebrating them as dads is something that's paramount that we should be doing. Because even though Michael did take the moment to find the dad down the street because he didn't actually have one in his personal life, we are going to find those people. You guys are going to find those people. But when you have them right at home, why not be that dad that your children are watching and can carry the stories and the memories through the rest of their lives? So as we wrap up today, guys, I just really want to thank you. Leadership begins long before someone gives anybody a title, right? And for too many people, leadership begins the moment that they think somebody's watching them. And so I appreciate each one of you sharing how you felt about that, and sharing those moments of vulnerability, and just being here today and being on Got Your Six. I appreciate all of you, and I hope to see all of you soon. Thanks, guys. Whether you're a father, a mother, a mentor, a coach, a teacher, business owners, your actions create a legacy every single day. You heard it from these amazing men that were on this call today. I love each and every one of them. They're all in different seasons, sharing these great impact moments with each of my listeners. So if today's conversation resonated with you, I'd like to invite you to join me inside of one of my membership groups as a Father's Day special gift to our listeners. I'm offering a complimentary month in one of my membership group inside of the Leaders Lounge or business owner group. We focus on practical leadership development, communication, decision making, resilience, and we blend personal and professional, because you can't do anything but do that. You'll find a link in the show notes for a schedule to make a quick 20-minute call just to make sure that you'll vibe with our groups or which one you belong in. When you book your call, tell me one thing you've learned from today's episode that lets me know you listened, reflect, and are ready to continue to grow. The call is simply to determine which group you belong in. It's not a sales call. It's just to determine where you're going to go, where you'll vibe the best. And before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and download the episode and share it with somebody you feel like might need to hear the conversation. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful conversations to leaders from all walks of life. Until next time, remember, leadership is not about perfection. It's about showing up, it's about growth, and it's about having the courage to keep moving forward one step at a time. And remember, I've got your six. Take care, everyone. I hope to see y'all soon.
Leadership isn't found in comfort, it's forged in fire. Life will test you. When you create stability through your choices, you don't just calm the chaos, you build momentum. Stay steady, stay strong, be decisive, and most of all, lead with intention. And remember, I've got your six.